monthly meeting. This one's a little longer than the little 10, 15 minutes. It's about a half hour long. And today I wanted to pick up where we left off last week. Last week, I was talking about how important it is that we embrace our accomplishments and celebrate our accomplishments. And in addition to that, to actually keep a list of our accomplishments. And I was saying that when we do this, it actually improves our self-esteem, makes us more confident as we move into life, and it subconsciously prepares us to make other accomplishments that maybe we might not think that we could make. So we walk into a situation and we're saying, oh man, how am I going to deal with this? I don't know if I can deal with this. When we're looking at these accomplishments and reminding ourselves of all these things we've done in the past, it propels us and subconsciously prepares us to accepting the fact that we can handle what's coming our way at the moment. And I was saying that those accomplishments don't have to be what society necessarily says is a big thing. Like one of the ones I mentioned, it was always a big deal to me, was I was the first one, and it sounds in some ways braggadocious, but at the same time, why is he bragging about that? But it was always a big deal to me that I was the first one at the camp to swim all the way across the lake. At least that's what they told me. I was the first one in the history of the camp. They might have been lying, but I believed it. But that always stuck with me and added to my self-esteem. So, I get ready to do something and it looked like a challenge. Don't forget, you were the first one to swim across the lake. And I remind myself of all these other things that I did that were a big deal to me, even though they might have seemed stupid, but at the time they were a big deal. And but that's important that we do those type of things. We have to build ourselves up because the world will tear us down, and quite often we will tear ourselves down. We will look at all the things that we felt that didn't go right instead of all the things that did go right. So in life, we have to make sure that we are building ourselves up, and we should do it regularly. And as I was saying, it really helps if you keep a list. Well, now I want to move to the next phase. The next phase is there comes a time when you're coming up against something that may seem impossible, totally impossible to get accomplished, especially on your own. And you have no idea how it's going to happen, but yet you need it to happen. And when that happens, this is the time that it's good to have a list of the times that God or the universe did things for you. That saying, won't he do it? Those are the times to move into our won't he do it list, so to speak. And I wrote a list like that for myself. I should have brought it in so I would have had something to refer to. But I have a little, what do you call it, a little composition book that looks something like this. But on that one, I have M for it, for miracles. And I remind myself of the miracles that happen because there are times in which I straight up need a miracle. And I know whether I swam across the lake at camp or whether I skipped the 8th grade or whether I did something else. Now, I'm not listing all the things I messed up on because there's quite a few of those. But as I'm, no matter how much I look at these things for reinforcement, I know that this particular thing is so big, it's like doggone impossible. And these are the times that I go back to the miracles. And for me, I've experienced so many miracles and seen so many miracles. And the more I start to look at them, and this is just the way our mind works, the more I start to believe that they are possible and that perhaps it is possible for what's going on in my life now. And there's this saying in the Bible, as a man thinketh, so is he. I always say, as a woman thinketh, so is she. It is true, but quite often we just can't see it. We can't see how this thing is going to happen. But if we really get to that point to where we see the world and the universe that way, we can be surprised at the things that will actually happen outside of our mortal powers, so to speak. And sometimes I've listed miracles that happened that I didn't necessarily invite to happen. I have some that I invited to happen, like, man, it'd be so cool if this happened. Oh, God, I wish you would do this. And then it happens. Okay, that's one that I invited. But then there's others that I didn't invite. One of them I think about was with my, and I've told the story before, my son Corey, when he was on his way back to Grand Rapids. And he was young, we're young. It's a whole different thing. We're young. He's young, and it's an ice storm outside. And he decides he wants to drive back to Grand Rapids. Now, he didn't have to go that day. Everybody said, hey, Corey, why don't you go tomorrow? At least I told him that. My mom told him that. His grandma, she told him, hey, Corey, maybe you should go tomorrow. The roads are ice covered. He decided he wanted to go. So back to Grand Rapids. So he hopped in his car. He drove to Grand Rapids. Well, at some point, I got a call saying that from the police telling me that his car flipped over, totally flipped over. And I'm like, oh my God, And then I was also told that he was okay. Didn't have a scratch on him whatsoever. And at that time, I was like, man, thank you, God. On the one hand, I was scared to death, but then I'm like, oh, thank you, God, he's okay. Thank you, God. And I even wondered then, I was like, man, is this a miracle, And then a few minutes later, either I can't remember if they handed me the phone or they called me back. And a few minutes later, they hand the phone over to this gentleman who just so happened to be driving his daughter. Now, Corey's maybe in Lansing. She just so happens to be he just so happens to be driving his daughter to Grand Rapids. Here he is right here. Talking about him. I think he caught me. But I usually like to do this behind their backs. But here he is. Here he is. This gentleman asked, do I mind if he gives Corey a ride to Grand Valley, the school he was going to in Grand Rapids, because he just so happened to be on his way to Grand Valley with his daughter when he saw Corey's car flip over. And I said, oh man, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And the guy gave Corey a ride the rest of the way to Grand Rapids. And I said, man, this has got to be a miracle, because I was asking, was it a miracle when he came out unscratched, didn't have to go to the hospital or anything like that, and maybe it would have been wise to get checked out, but we didn't even do that. But on top of that, I didn't have to go get him and take him or whatever. He got his ride to Grand Rapids. And and then on top of that, when he just so happens that his sister, who had graduated before him, she moved to Chicago and no longer needed her car, so he got another car to drive. But to me, that was a miracle. That was maybe an uninvited miracle, but that was a miracle. And I also feel as though the more we build ourselves up spiritually, the more we believe in miracles in our world, and when we believe in God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, a power bigger than us, the more we experience these type of things. And it was really clear when I went to see the car, because the car, it had all this chunks of grass all inside the car, and the top is smashed. I said, man, how did he come out of this okay? But it was a miracle. So that's one of the things I have written in my book for miracles is, hey, don't forget, Corey came out of that crash unscathed, and so forth and so on. And I have miracle after miracle after miracle. I have the one that I love to talk about all the time, about how the tree almost crushed me, but I was told by some part of myself, don't drive any further, even though there's plenty of room before the red light to drive where the rest of the cars were. I'm like, why? That tree might fall. I'm like, that tree ain't gonna fall. It's raining, yeah, the wind's blowing, but my car's not blowing. Look how big that tree is. And then the gentleman next to me stops also, and he looks at me like, why are we sitting here? And then a couple seconds later, boom! That big old tree falls right in front of us. I knew for a fact that was a miracle, and I knew for a fact that God, the universe, was talking to me. And I was arguing back and forth, like, why can't I go forward? But something did not let me go. That was a miracle. I look at that as being in tune. I also told myself that, oh my God, from now on, the tree was so big, we had to turn around and go the other way to go around Northwestern because it covered the whole half of Northwestern Highway, which is a big street. But at that time, I told myself, I said, man, from now on, I am always, always, always going to pay attention and listen when God talks to me. I have to admit it, there's some time since then that I didn't. I have to remind myself again, hey, look, it could be life or death sometimes. But that, again, was a miracle. And I've had one after another, some in my life, sometimes in other people's lives that were connected to me. But I have seen miracle after miracle after miracle. And when I'm reminding myself of all these different miracles over and over again, and I'm hit with a situation to where I don't know where the money's going to come from, or I don't know where the better health is going to come from, or I don't know where this is going to happen with this person that I love, I remind myself that God has been there over and over. And the more I trust in it, it's going to happen again. And I make that list as long as I can, where it's page after page after page, because the more I'm looking at it, the more I'm convincing myself that this is what happens in my life. And the more I'm convinced the way the world works is that as a man thinketh, so is he. As a woman thinketh, so is he, so is she. If you begin to expect these things, this is the way the world works for you. So we build these things up. So not only do I say that we have a list of our accomplishments, we have to have a list of God and the universe's accomplishments in our world, and a list of the miracles. One interesting one that I've also mentioned before was with my son, youngest son, Jordan, who's not in here. And he was young, and he was in the bowling competition, and he had anxiety, and he was getting upset because everyone was bowling so much better than him. And I'm watching him get upset, and I'm feeling for him. You know, he's got tears in his eyes and the whole nine, you know. And I'm thinking, man, you know, I was thinking, and then I decided I would ask God. I said, you know I can come to you and ask for an immediate change in my world. You know, and it makes sense because it's me. Maybe this higher part of myself relaxes me, and all of a sudden now I can perform better, whatever. But can you do it in somebody else's world for me? Because right now he needs this. This is something that's going to he's hurting right now, and I didn't know if he's going to be able to keep going. I think at one point he asked me, "Can we leave?" I said, "Well, just try to finish this game out. Then if we have to, we'll leave." Because I was trying to teach him that we try to follow through if we can. You know, he was on the team, and so I started chanting my mantra over and over again, or AUM mantra over and over again, Om mantra over and over, just wondering if it might help. To my surprise, all of a sudden, even though he still wasn't bowling that great, he started going up to the other team members and even the people on the other team when they would bowl good balls or strikes. He walked over to him and he gave him a high five, which was powerful for where he was at the time. And I was like, wow, look at this. The next thing I know, he starts bowling incredible. He's a great bowler now, but this is when he was young. He bowled well over 200, and I mean he was just strike after strike after strike. He was just in his zone. I was like, oh, it can happen outside of me, not just within me in my psyche, but it can happen outside of me when I'm asking the universe to come to my aid. And it was just the most incredible experience for me. And I was just so happy to see this thing happen for him. At the same time, it was a big lesson for me. And I've had it happen other times with situations with other people in other situations. And I have gotten to the point to where I really trust that miracles can happen in my life. I crack jokes a lot of times when I'm talking to people. I know the first time I said it at the family table, now my father and stepmom, they were pretty conservative. Um, and we're sitting there with my sister and folks. I forget if it was Thanksgiving dinner or maybe it's Christmas. I think it's Christmas dinner. And you know, they were talking about different things, and I said, "Yeah, that's just like the first time I made it stop raining." And I knew it's something inside of me maybe likes punishment or something. I knew the looks I was going to get at the time. But I guess I built myself up to the point to where now I could actually explain how, hey, I made it stop raining. I know it sounds crazy. It happened 3 times. But, and some of y'all out there be like, okay, he was sounding all right up until now. Yeah, like time to cut the video off, or time to leave, or whatever. But it blew my mind. But I had been building myself up more and more. Maybe not intentionally, maybe just to make it through my world, just to be able to. Sometimes in this life, we have to build ourselves up. We have sickness, we have people passing on who we love, we have sometimes money troubles, and of course we have all those great things that go on in our life too. But I have been building myself up through these situations, and I have a habit of throwing myself into situations where maybe things would have been smooth if I didn't try to push it too far. But I have a habit of pushing things too far. I can do that, so I go ahead and step out there, and then I gotta ask God, okay, how are you gonna help me out here now? Well, this day I remember the house. My business, we have a few thousand customers. I remember, and this wasn't like a regular house we did all the time, but I remember the house. I passed by that house about a month ago, and I said, that's the house. And I'm on that house, and I'm out there by myself, cleaning some gutters. And usually it'd be some other people with me, but I was out there by myself at that time back then. And all of a sudden it just starts pouring rain, and it's dark. And I'm like, man, I wish I could have finished this house. And so I stop, and I'm near the edge of the roof where the gutter is. And I'm on the rooftop. And I just decided, I said, you know what? I got up and I said, when I get to the peak of this roof, which is about 8-10 steps, I don't know how many. When I get to the peak of this roof, it's gonna stop raining. And it was just like, I was just throwing it out there. I don't think I believed it. And I just started walking, and I started walking confidently. When I got to the edge of the roof, I was like, I know, it's crazy, but it stopped, and it just began to like be a drop here, a drop there. It got light, and like a steam started coming off the roof. I could not believe it. The whole roof was wet. I just sat there on the roof. I was just like, oh my God. I was like, I can't believe this. And I was like, how could I forget? I am connected. The more we focus on being connected, we all are. The more we focus on being connected, the more we are. I was watching this movie with my wife the other day. I think it was called Mortal. And this guy, he started developing all these powers, and he was able to control things outside himself. But the interesting thing was, his psychologist was having to remind him, because he had the building they were in on fire, and the psychologist was reminding him that you're doing this, you can control this, you can stop this, this is up to you, you have the power. And he realized that was what's going on, and it stopped. This is what happens to us all the time. We find ourselves in these situations and we're like, why is this going on? You are making this happen. You are controlling this. It says we are made in the image and likeness of God, and the Bible says, I say unto you, I say unto you, or ye, I forget how it goes, you are gods. Ye are gods. You got the internet, look it up. But but it's true. We just don't know that we are doing this. So we create these limitations. I stepped in a whole different universe just recently. Just recently, I stepped into a universe where I am still able to send my flyers out through various subdivisions where I was not able to for 3 years. The universe I was in, I could not, because these particular areas have put up no soliciting signs. Now, in my spare time, a lot of times I will just drive past mailboxes. That's what I do a couple hours a day, and or I do on the weekend, and I just stick them in the free press tubes or whatever. Well, these areas, they have these no soliciting signs at the beginning of the subdivisions. I said, well, I'm not going here. I'm not going to have the county on my back, you know. And so I left it alone. My friend who was in the same business, he was complaining about the same thing. He stopped doing it also. Well, the other day when I was riding high and really on top of my game and just really focusing on higher things in life and so forth, as my son, who I had not mentioned yet, my middle son, Antonio, would say, I was moving into my ultimate form. Most of y'all probably don't know what that is. Corey's laughing because he knows, because he probably watched Dragon Ball Z at some point or something. But I was beginning to move into my ultimate form, where I was just vibrating high. And that day I was feeling so good, and I saw one of my customers. She's like, man, she's like, and I was giving her an estimate or something. She was like, I don't see your flyers anymore. I've been looking for your flyers. I don't see it anymore. I said, well, you all got the no soliciting signs up in this subdivision, so we don't send them through here anymore. She's like, that's not for you. She's like, that's for people walking door to door and ringing doorbells. That's not for you. And I said, oh, wow. I said, that's pretty deep. She says, yeah, we get flyers all the time in the free press tubes and so forth. And I said to myself, yeah, but the county probably coming down on them, So the other day, I took out my team as my middle son would call it. He's starting a business, and he meets with his team, AI. And they have conferences. So as I was meeting with my team, I asked, because my team has all the information as far as what the laws are in each county and I said, I asked about the no soliciting ordinance, and it specified that no, that's for people going door to door. If there were flyers going out to free press tubes, that's different, because they are at the end of the street. You are not actually on their property, and because of the federal law that with containing free speech, you're still able to do that. You are not stepping onto their private property. You are in the federal domain, so to speak. And I said, now I told my son, as I was talking to him on the phone, I said, man, I just stepped in another universe. I said, you're going to think this is strange, but I kind of believe that because I became open to this, I moved into the world to where that was the law. And before, when I was not open to this was the law before. I said, what if the law was actually the way I saw it, and it changed as I changed? Now, I know that may sound like, okay, now we're going to some sci-fi movies. That's what he was saying. But I felt this way. And I had another example of a situation I had, another miracle that I had, that I explained, in which something like that had happened to me. But whatever the case is, I felt like it was a miracle. That's one of the things I'm putting in my book. I'm in a different world now. Now I can advertise in these subdivisions where we were known. We still are known in those subs, but now they're not seeing us as often. But we were known over there, and they constantly were seeing and being reminded of us. Now I can go back into those subs, so we were getting great response, and it's a wonderful thing. Now, as we start to record these miracles, and I mean, you can look for them. It could be that, hey, my tire went flat, and then all this. Next thing I know, somebody pulled up out the blue and said, hey, you need some help? Just you say, oh man, I don't know how to do this. Or That's a miracle. But we gotta record these things. And the more we record, the more we look at them, the more we have them. The more we meditate, the more we raise our vibration, the more we have them. And the more we do this, the more we are moving into our ultimate form. Our ultimate form is as we grow spiritually, we develop, now they don't mention this in Dragon Ball Z, but you develop, you're developing ojas. You're developing the spiritual substance. That's a Sanskrit term. You're developing the spiritual substance. The more you meditate, the more you focus, the more you say to yourself, won't he do it? The more you believe, the more you are developing the ojas, the more you're developing the spiritual substance. The more this happens, the more we are getting closer and closer and closer to our ultimate form. We move into our ultimate form. Now, the limitations that we used to place upon ourselves, they are moved out the way. Things that used to hold us back are now moved out the way. Things that we used to be afraid of, all of a sudden now we have the courage to do. Ideas that we used to be blocked from, now all of a sudden they are just rolling our way. And so I've been talking with my middle son, Tony. You know, he was saying, oh, Dad, you're moving to your ultimate form now. Because I've been talking to him about all these things I'm doing with my website, and I've been meeting with my team, AI, and getting all kind of ideas for different types of movements I want to do within it and so forth, and then expressing myself over here and expressing myself over there. He's like, I can see it. You're moving into your ultimate form. This is when we allow the universe to express itself to me. There are ways in which I was holding myself back, things in which I didn't want to do, ways in which I was saying, oh man, they don't see Craig that way. I don't want to come to them with this because they don't see me this way. These people do over here, but these folks don't over here. So I'm not going to reveal that part of myself. But as I move into my ultimate form, I forget about Craig and how Craig is perceived, and I allow the universe to come through. The more I meditate and the more I focus on the good and the miracles, the more I am building myself up. But this is what we are to all do. And as we are building ourselves up, the people around us are profiting on account of it. As the Bible says, do not hide your lamp up under a bushel. Now we are emitting more of the light within us. More of us is out the way so more of the light can come through. And your family benefits. Other people benefit. People will come up to you and say, oh, you know, the reason why I did this is I was watching you. And you'll hear that more. You hear that more. And you will feel it more. And you will enjoy the miracles. You will be testifying to the world, letting folks know that, hey, you can do this. Let me tell you why, because I've been through this. And it looked like there was no way it should work. It looked like there was no way it should happen. It looked like there was no way the money would come. It looked like the doctors told me that no, you're done healing. That's what they said about my ankles. You're done healing. You're gonna have that arthritis. It's not going to get any better. And guess what? It's been getting better. One of my classmates helped me out with that. When I put on Facebook and I shared what happened with me and whatnot, one of my classmates said, not only are you going to walk, you are going to run, you are going to jump. And it sounded very far-fetched. The doctor said, whatever you do, don't run. But she was right. And I held on to that. At first I said, oh, that was kind of crazy what Kim said. But I held on to it still. It's one of those things helping me move into my ultimate form that moves beyond the limitations, even that the doctors may put upon me. And the other day, I grabbed my wife and I had her stand over there. I said, watch this, honey. She said, what you about to do? I said, I can run. And I ran across the room. But there's no limitations. Moving to my ultimate form. We all should be doing so. This is what life is about. It's about growing. Craig Kimbrough, Positive Guru. Until next time, peace and blessings to you all.
always follow that roof area to the